Earlier during filming, I noted that the transport from this Fostex was the same as a Porta One transport among others, and so just to demonstrate that, here's an open Porta Two. So you can see that they're pretty much identical. The difference is really in the plastic button array, which is just screwed on. So this one, the record button's attached. You recall earlier on the Fostex that there was a kind of separate button mechanism here. But if you unscrew that, then it's basically the same thing underneath. So what I'm going to do now is dismantle and lubricate this side of the transport. I have worked in this style of transport before, but quite a long time ago. It's pretty fiddly, it's a lot of small moving parts, easy to get confused. So a couple of tips about doing this for the first time, or even if you've done it a few times. Obviously I've got the benefit of I'm filming this, so I can refer to my own footage, but if you're not filming yourself doing it, do take pictures as you go along. In addition to that, what I'd suggest is have a bunch of component boxes handy. What I like to do in situations like this is number the components. So what I'll do is I'll take the parts that are come off here and put them into these compartments in the order I remove them, and then say I use all 12 compartments, then I'll put the 12th one back first, then the 11th, then the 10th and the 9th. If you end up with a lot of little clips and plastic gears and everything, then it can be pretty easy to get them mixed up about what went where. Doing things in sequence like that is helpful. The other thing is to use coloured marker pens. So say that spring there is coming off there. When I come off there, then what I could do, say it was the third thing I took off, I'll put this red marker pen on this joint and this joint here, and then I'll also put a little, I'll wipe that off in a second with isopropyl wipe. And then when I come back to that, not only have I got the order, then I've got some kind of visual key to show that whatever was in this compartment is joining onto places where there's red mark on the metal. And to repeat, you can get this, it'll leave a faint mark, but you can remove it just by wiping it with the same sort of isopropyl swabs that you use for injections or that tattooers use, that you've seen me use in a bunch of videos before. And I'll quickly demonstrate what I mean by that. Just comes off. In fact, I'll risk it, it might leave a little mark, but if I go like that, that'll stay there until you wipe it off with alcohol. So you can use it as a only semi-permanent way of leaving notes to yourself. As I mentioned earlier in filming, when I was using this, the head assembly was a little bit reluctant to raise and lower. Now I'm not sure whether that's to do with bad lubrication on all these gears back here, or more to do with lubrication under these plates here, but I'm going to do this side of it first. So you could roughly follow these instructions for Yamaha or Tascam units that use this type of transport. I forget exactly which models I've seen of the Yamaha. It's the one that looks like Sauron's multitrack. Third Island did a video on it. But basically there's going to be a number of screws which attach the plastic button array to the front. Usually two of them, I'm trying to see. I think this one down here is just attaching this pitch daughter board to that, which isn't typical of all the transports of this type. So I believe if I just remove these two screws, then that will... yeah. So you can see that these levers coming off of these buttons fit into these and raise and lower things. Oh, that's the tiny screws. There's this little spring mechanism that went on there, and that's going to hold up the button array. This is what I'm calling a button array. I don't really know if it's called button array in a service manual because I don't have one. Assembly and array are nomenclature that's used for a complicated thing, so that's what I'm going with. I'll put that in my box. And as per my instructions earlier, what I'll do is put little red marks where the things were, and that will help me remember how to reassemble it later. You'll notice that this is attached to the motor up here, so unless you're going to detach the motor, and I don't see the point of doing that, then you can't remove that completely. On other models of this transport, like for a Porta One, then they'll just come off separately. And also you can see in this pause It's a kind of black plastic tab that's not present in some other ones that I've disassembled. Now, if I'm going to remove this plate to lubricate under there, you can see that really I need to get the pinch roller off. So we'll take this pinch roller arm away. There's a little screw in there that's holding it onto this plate. So I'm going to hook that off with tweezers. Easier said than done sometimes. And then I can use the tweezers in combination with needle nose pliers to remove this E-clip. There we go. And that'll lift off. The spring's still attached here. Slot number 2. Kind of confident that I will remember where that goes, but imagining that I wasn't, and I could put a blue marker there and a blue marker here. This plate needs to come off. I've got a feeling that that metal part there contains a bearing, so if you're doing this, make sure that doesn't roll away. And you see that tiny little bearing, so you should sort of stick to your finger a little bit because it's still got some grease on it. So that'll need to be cleaned and the grease replaced. I'm using silicone grease. I've heard of people using lithium grease. I can't speak to that because I haven't used it myself, but some sort of non-conductive lubricant is what you would use. And I'll leave a mark there and on my box so I know where to put it back. For this to come off, we'll need to remove these E-clips. Also this spring. Take the spring off first. That colour's not very good actually, it's not showing up very well. This is, yeah, that's a bit brighter. Keep that in the same compartment of the box. And then this will need to come off. You can see there's a washer there as well. Again, they've got a little bit of grease in them, so they'll sort of stick to your finger. You can sort of lift them that way usually. In fact, that's a double washer. There's a plastic one underneath as well. Goes into compartment 5. Pick a colour that's not green so I don't get mixed up with that. So this sky blue. I think at that point that's going to lift out. Yeah, so it's just there's kind of moving parts under here. You can see the grease is kind of orange. Oh, very important, bearings. See those? 1, 2 little recesses. Oh, in fact 3, sorry. That's the third place. So that's how that's rolling. So I definitely want to get these 3 bearings come into that final compartment, number 6. So I'll use brown and put a mark here and here, remind myself that those places are where the point from earlier we maybe missed. There's a spring underneath the pinch roller arm I didn't take off, so I'll put that in the pinch roller arm compartment. So get the old grease off. I'm using isopropyl wipes. Of course you need to be a little bit careful that you don't take away the Sharpie ink that's reminding you where things go. If you're taking photographs as you go along, then you can rely on them. So this grease doesn't feel too bad. It still feels like grease. Sometimes you'll get to it and it's actually, it feels like dried up PVA glue almost, and it's certainly not lubricating the mechanism anymore. In fact, it will be inhibiting it. But there's a chance to get rid of any dirt or dust that's built up in the mechanism that might get on your magnetic heads and spoil your sound. Okay, so I'll go off screen, stop recording and reassemble that. Oh, in fact, before I do that, I'll just show you. This is what I'm using, silicone grease. I mentioned it earlier. Take some of that fresh grease and say put it in that recess where that bearing was, and then use the grease that's still on my finger to pick up the bearings, which by then I will have cleaned with this isopropyl wipe again and put the bearing back. So yeah, that's my process for re-lubricating these things. Right, we'll come back and look at the other side.